Hi, hello. Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about Sale of Goods Act. This is one of the special act that we can say for particularly for sales, and this act is related to the sale of goods and contained in the Sale of Goods Act 1930. The Sale of Goods Act applies only to the movable other than actionable claim and money. The provisions of the Sale of Goods Act are applicable only those things which can be called goods. The sale of immovable property is governed by the Transfer of Property Act 1872, and actionable claims and money are executed from the goods. So let me discuss about this Sale of Goods Act and what is Sale of Goods Act and what are the types of goods like this. So the Sale of Goods Act is basically law that deals with the sale of goods in India. It comes into existence on 1st July 1930, that is which came into the force on 1st July 1930, and it is applicable all over India except Jammu and Kashmir. So what is sale of goods? That we can say when the rights of ownership in the goods is transferred from the seller to the buyer. This is called sale of goods. Simply you can say transfer of ownership. When we transfer of ownership, that we can say sale of goods. That is two persons are involving here, that seller and buyer. For example, if Nitish sells his musical instruments to Sharap for a sum of rupees 15,000, this transaction is called sales, since the ownership of musical instrument is transferred from Nitish to Sharap. Here the person who is transferring the ownership is called a seller, and to whom the ownership is transferred is called buyer. So Nitish is a seller and Sharap is a buyer. Next we discuss about types of sale of goods. So there are two types of sale of goods, that is we can say absolute sales and conditional sale. That absolute sales means where the transfer of ownership in the goods is immediately transferred from the seller to the buyer. That is if the sales take place on immediate action, and immediately the ownership is transferred from the seller to the buyer. And conditional sales means that where the transfer of ownership in the goods shall take place in future, or the fulfillment of certain conditions. If they have some certain condition terms and conditions, and that have to be fulfilled, and that we can say is a conditional sale, that may be happen in a future, not an immediate transfer of ownership. So that next we discuss about contract of sale. So a contract of sale of goods is a contract whereby the seller transfer or agrees to transfer the property in the goods to the buyer for a price. So for a contract of sales, and what are the essential must be there. And next I'm going to tell you what are the essentials that should in the contract of sale. So that these are the some essential of contract of sale, that we can say is a valid contract and bilateral contract and transfer of ownership and goods and price. So what is a valid contract? So as you know that as per the Indian Contract Act, we have some valid essential of contract, that is offer plus offer and acceptance, create a legal relationship, capacity of parties, free consent, possibility of performance, and lawful consideration, like that. So that the contract must have some essential of valid contract, that is we are saying that is one of the first essential you can say. And then next you can say that bilateral contract, So in already we have discussed that contract may be a unilateral or bilateral, but in this sale of goods always have a bilateral contract, that there must be at least two parties, that is seller and buyer. The person who is sells um, agrees to sell the goods is called a seller, and a person who buys or agrees to buy the goods is called as a buyer. So that we can say that buyer is getting the goods and getting the ownership, and seller is transferring his ownership to the buyer. Next you can say that one of the essential is transfer of ownership, that there must should be a immediate transfer of an agreement or to transfer the ownership of goods sold. This is also one of the essential, and maybe immediate or in a future, and that sale of goods means there must be a transfer of ownership. And next we can say that there must be a price in a money would be a paid or promised, but there is no money consideration, the transaction is not a conduct of sale. There must be a consideration, that is there must be a price for the sale. So without the price, and there is no sale of goods act, it's not comes under the sale of goods and conduct of sale. And also there must be goods, we should have a goods. So goods means that any kind of movable property other than actionable claim and money. For example, copyrights and instruments, cement, patent, stock, shares, etc. And that everything here goods we can say that movable property, and immovable property is not comes under the sale of goods act, because it's separately that act have like property act, it comes under the property act, so it's not comes under the sale of goods act. So only that movable property is the sale of goods act. So these are the some basic essential of sale of contract. Thank you.